ahead and start recording. I like to record these because there's many people who aren't able to join, so they get a copy and they can listen at their own leisure. So just want to let everybody know that this is being recorded and it will be shared. So hopefully you don't mind that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen also, so we can start reading because it's 12:30. And let me just get over here. Not really sure why this is not, let's see here. This banner's in my way, so it's prohibiting me from sharing my screen. Okay, let's see here. We will go to this. All right. I'll make this bigger. Okay, finally we have this. A Course in Miracles, chapter 13, section 11, the peace of heaven. Forgetfulness and sleep and even death become the ego's best advice for dealing with the perceived and harsh intrusion of guilt on peace. Yet no one sees himself in conflict and ravaged by a cruel war unless he believes that both opponents in the war are real. Believing this, he must escape, for such a war would surely end his peace of mind and so destroy him. Yet if he could but realize the war is between real and unreal powers, he could look upon himself and see his freedom. No one finds himself ravaged and torn in endless battles if he himself perceives them as wholly without meaning. God would not have his son embattled, and so his son's imagined enemy is totally unreal. You are but trying to escape a bitter war from which you have escaped. The war is gone. For you have heard the hymn of freedom rising unto heaven. Gladness and joy belong to God for your release, because you made it not. Yet as you made not freedom, so you made not a war that could endanger freedom. Nothing destructive ever was or ever will be. The war, the guilt, the past are gone as one into the unreality from which they came. When we are all united in heaven, you will value nothing that you value here. For nothing that you value here do you value wholly, and so you do not value it at all. Value is where God placed it, and the value of what God esteems cannot be judged, for it has been established. It is wholly of value. It can merely be appreciated or not. To value it partially is not to know its value. And heaven is everything God values and nothing else. Heaven is perfectly unambiguous. Everything is clear and bright and calls forth one response. There is no darkness and there is no contrast. There is no variation. There is no interruption. There is a sense of peace so deep that no dream in this world has ever brought even a dim imagining of what it is. Nothing in this world can give this peace, for nothing in this world is wholly shared. Perfect perception can merely show you what is capable of being wholly shared. It can also show you the results of sharing, while you still remember the results of not sharing. The Holy Spirit points quietly to the contrast, knowing that you will finally let him judge the difference for you, allowing him to demonstrate which must be true. He has perfect faith in your final judgment because he knows that he will make it for you. To doubt this would be to doubt that his mission will be fulfilled. How is this possible when his mission is of God? You, whose mind is darkened by doubt and guilt, remember this: God gave the Holy Spirit to you and gave him the mission to remove all doubt and every trace of guilt that his dear Son has laid upon himself. It is impossible that this mission fail. Nothing can prevent what God would have accomplished from accomplishment. Whatever your reactions to the Holy Spirit's voice may be, whatever voice you choose to listen to, whatever strange thoughts may occur to you, God's will is done. You will find the peace in which he has established you because he does not change his mind. He is invariable as the peace in which you dwell and of which the Holy Spirit reminds you. You will not remember change and shift in heaven. You have need of contrast only here. Contrast and differences are necessary teaching aids, for by them you learn what to avoid and what to seek. When you have learned this, you will find the answer that makes the need for any differences disappear. Truth comes of its own will unto its own. When you have learned that you belong to truth, it will flow lightly over you without a difference of any kind. For you will need no contrast to help you realize that this is what you want, and only this. Fear not, the Holy Spirit will fail in what your Father has given him to do. The will of God can fail at nothing. Have faith in only this one thing, and it will be sufficient. God wills you be in heaven, and nothing can keep you from it, or it from you. Your wildest misperceptions, your weird imaginings, your blackest nightmares all mean nothing. They will not prevail against the peace God wills for you. The Holy Spirit will restore your sanity because insanity is not the will of God. If that suffices him, it is enough for you. You will not keep what God would have removed because it breaks communication with you, with whom he would communicate. His voice will be heard. The communication link that God himself placed within you, joining your mind with his, cannot be broken. You may believe you want it broken, and this belief does interfere with the deep peace in which the sweet and constant communication God would share with you is known. Yet his channels of reaching out cannot be wholly closed and separated from him. Peace will be yours because his peace still flows to you from him whose will is peace. You have it now. The Holy Spirit will teach you how to use it, and by extending it, to learn that it is in you. God willed you heaven and will always will you nothing else. The Holy Spirit knows only of his will. There is no chance that heaven will not be yours, for God is sure, and what he wills is as sure as he is. You will learn salvation because you will learn how to save. It will not be possible to exempt yourself from what the Holy Spirit wants to teach you. Salvation is as sure as God. His certainty suffices. Learn that even the darkest nightmare that disturbs the mind of God's sleeping Son holds no power over him. He will learn the lesson of awaking. God watches over him and light surrounds him. Can God's Son lose himself in dreams when God has placed within him the glad call to waken and be glad? He cannot separate himself from what is in him. His sleep will not withstand the call to wake. The mission of redemption will be fulfilled as surely as the creation will remain unchanged throughout eternity. You do not have to know that heaven is yours to make it so. It is so. Yet, to know it, the will of God must be accepted as your will. The Holy Spirit will undo for you everything you have learned that teaches that what is not true must be reconciled with truth. This is the reconciliation the ego would substitute for your reconciliation to sanity and to peace. The Holy Spirit has a very different kind of reconciliation in his mind for you, and one he will effect as surely as the ego will not affect what it attempts. Failure is of the ego, not of God. From him you cannot wander, and there is no possibility that the plan the Holy Spirit offers to everyone for the salvation of everyone will not be perfectly accomplished. You will be released, and you will not remember anything you made that was not created for you and by you in return. For how can you remember what was never true, or not remember what has always been? It is this reconciliation with truth, and only truth, in which the peace of heaven lies. Well, that's reassuring. At least we know we can't mess it up, right?
As long as we adhere to the truth.
As long as we accept the truth, right? That's all.
Right, right.
Well, that means dropping the ego.
Right.
That's not so easy.
Simple, but not easy.
Right.
Right? It's just a simple thing. Fear or love, right? Two choices over and over and over 60,000 times a day with all of our thoughts. Fear, love, fear, love, fear, love. The more accustomed we become to choosing love, the more we accept the Holy Spirit as our guide. This takes practice. It's like going to the gym, right? The first time you go to the gym, you haven't been there for a while, you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be horrible, because you're not used to it, right? And your body's like, ugh. And your mind's saying, no, don't make me do it. But then when you go after a couple of times, your body's getting excited about it and wants to go back. Then after about a month, your body's going, let's get to the gym. I feel good. Right? It's the same way, I think, with choosing the Holy Spirit. The more you choose love, the more you see the results. And all of a sudden, your day is peaceful. You have harmony. You have happiness. Those relationships that were in turmoil and all those grievances you were holding, that you thought you were holding for a good reason to protect yourself, you start loosening and letting go of, and then you realize, wow, there is abundance. I don't have to focus on getting that because there's so much more here. It's all about practicing choice, being vigilant of the mind and all of the 60,000 thoughts a day the mind has.
That's all, 60,000?
Approximately, some more, some less. About 60,000 thoughts a day.
Man, no wonder I'm tired at the end of the day.
Yeah. Sometimes it does feel like 60,000.
Yeah. They've done studies that is approximately how many thoughts you have a day.
And the same old stuff over and over again.
Some of them, if you do have the same ones over and over again, that's probably why your life is not moving forward, right? Because your thoughts are what create your reality. And if you're thinking old thoughts, then you're probably not creating very many new things.
You know, at the beginning, when I heard about trying to quiet the mind, I used to think, what is that? Quieting the mind? Really? You know, because I wasn't even aware of how much thinking or thoughts I was having that has nothing to do with anything.
Right. Sure.
So, you know, becoming aware was the first, right? The first thing is like, wow, I'm really doing that?
Yeah. And then putting practices in, right, to quiet the mind, doing sound baths, letting your mind just connect to that one mind of God and allowing the messages to come through instead of, trying to do it all yourself, saying, I have to do it, I have to figure it out, just letting go, right? Let go, let God, let that higher one mind come in and guide you. Great to have you join, Carol. I see you jumped in as I was reading. Nice to have you here.
Okay, thank you. Nice to see everybody.
Yes.
I was looking at paragraph 11. The Holy Spirit will undo for you everything you've learned that teaches that what is not true must be reconciled with truth. We can just banter back and forth and try to figure it all out when really all we have to do is just sort of release into the higher mind.
Yeah, release. That's such a good word too. It really reflects what's going on too.
Yeah, it's interesting as well, because when you talk about the analogy with going to the gym, in a way, I get what you're saying, because it's like kind of muscle memory, but actually, weirdly, it's a completely opposite, because actually you're by letting go, you're actually not doing any work. You're doing almost the complete opposite.
Right.
It's a better training because you're essentially not doing anything. You're just allowing. And I guess you
Getting out of
don't
the
ache as,
way.
yeah, and you don't ache as much the next in the morning when you first start going back to the gym as you do to go back to the gym. But it's just brilliant. You're right. And it's funny because I'm just reflecting on the conversation we had before where I was just getting so wound up by these things taking ages. It's like, well, actually, I bought into the ego so well, but it took a little while, but actually it was creating more of a tiredness and a annoyance just by getting involved, whereas I could have just let it go. And I've just been realizing, God, I could have just let it go. It's so much easier, but why is it so much harder? It's weird.
And it's interesting too, because what we just read is that's the contrast, right? And it's necessary for you to see the contrast.
Yes, it's true. You're right.
So that you can make a choice.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. There's a nice little revelation. You can have this or you can have this. Which one are you going to go for?
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you. That's just beautiful.
No, you shared it this morning. So thank you for sharing. And that's why, the half an hour we're on before we start doing the reading can be even more valuable sometimes, right? Because you can read all of this, but until you have those experiences where you can put this into practice and say, oh, okay, now I get it. This is how this works in a practical, everyday sense. I think that's why our discussions early on are great, because we're talking about, well, how did you, I'm frustrated about this, I'm frustrated about that. And you really just get into, yeah, this happened and that happened. And, this is going on in my life. And then you read this and you're like, that's it.
And now imagine that state of being comfortable and not needing the choices, because you know completely where you resonate, and you have the opportunity to have at any second in time all of the quote unquote knowledge, all of the wisdom, all of the applications that you ever could imagine, and those beyond your imagination, and they are yours. To know that, to have that peace, that certainty, that trust that you are safe and you are all and one with everything. Imagine having that actually be the life that you live and your state of being.
It's beautiful, Mary. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Yes. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, Nick, when you were saying, oh, I feel like I have to know more. I have to know all of this. And you already know it.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? It's just that ego mind is saying that you don't. You just aren't used to trusting the voice of the one mind.
Yes, you're right. Well, it all comes flooding back as well when you start reading it. You know, if my practice is going to be just reading it, then it's all going to be there anyway. It's all going to come back. So it's
That's
just,
right.
yeah, it's beautiful. You're right. Absolutely.
That's right. And I love the part that we just read that just says, it doesn't matter because that is the will of God that we remember. So it can't fail. It has to come back.
Yeah.
This next section looks really good too. Chapter 14 is entitled Teaching for Truth. Who's excited about that?
Awesome. Yes, I'm in.
Are we ready to keep going, or is there more discussion?
Just the one line that resonated with me there was, failure is of the ego, not of God.
That stood out for me too, Ernesto. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
So simple words like that this sometimes this text puts together are very thought-provoking, right?
Yeah. My kitty was crying at the door, wanted to come in. Okay, let's keep going.
All right.
Chapter 14, Teaching for Truth, the introduction. Yes, you are blessed indeed. Yet in this world, you do not know it, but you have the means for learning it and seeing it quite clearly. The Holy Spirit uses logic as easily and as well as does the ego, except that his conclusions are not insane. They take a direction exactly opposite, pointing as clearly to heaven as the ego points to darkness and to death. We have followed much of the ego's logic and have seen its logical conclusions. And having seen them, we have realized that they cannot be seen except in illusions. For there alone, their seeming clearness seems to be clearly seen. Let us now turn away from them and follow the simple logic by which the Holy Spirit teaches the simple conclusions that speak for truth and only truth. I'm going to go ahead and keep going because that was pretty short. The conditions of learning. If you are blessed and do not know it, you need to learn it must be so. The knowledge is not taught, but its conditions must be acquired, for it is they that have been thrown away. You can learn to bless and cannot give what you have not. If, then, you offer blessing, it must have come first to yourself. And you must also have accepted it as yours, for how else could you give it away? That is why miracles offer you the testimony that you are blessed. If what you offer is complete forgiveness, you must have let guilt go, accepting the at-one-ment for yourself and learning you are guiltless. How could you learn what has been done for you, unknown to you, unless you do what you would have to do if it had been done for you? Indirect proof of truth is needed in a world made of denial and without direction. You will perceive the need for this if you realize that to deny is the decision not to know. The logic of the world must therefore lead to nothing, for its goal is nothing. If you decide to have and give and be nothing except a dream, you must direct your thoughts unto oblivion. And if you have and give and are everything, and all this has been denied, your thought system is closed off and wholly separated from the truth. This is an insane world. And do not underestimate the extent of its insanity. There is no area of your perception that it has not touched, and your dream is sacred to you. That is why God placed the Holy Spirit in you, where you placed the dream. Seeing is always outward, where your thoughts wholly of you, the thought system you made, would be forever dark. The thoughts the mind of God's Son projects or extends have all the power that he gives to them. The thoughts he shares with God are beyond his belief, but those he made are his beliefs. And it is these, and not the truth, that he has chosen to defend and love. They will not be taken from him, but they can be given up by him. For the source of their undoing is in him. There is nothing in the world to teach him that the logic of the world is totally insane and leads to nothing. Yet in him who made this insane logic, there is one who knows it leads to nothing, for he knows everything. Seeing is always outward, where your thoughts wholly. Did I just read that?
You skipped a piece.
Yeah. Sorry, I did. Did it.
Number 4.
Okay, I'm on 4. Thank you, Freddie. Any direction that would lead you where the Holy Spirit leads you not goes nowhere. Anything you deny that he knows to be true, you have denied yourself, and he must therefore teach you not to deny it. Undoing is indirect, as doing is. You were created only to create, neither to see nor do. These are but indirect expressions of the will to live, which has been blocked by the capricious and unholy whim of death and murder that your Father does not share with you. You have set yourself the task of sharing what cannot be shared. And while you think it possible to learn to do this, you will not believe all that is possible to learn to do. The Holy Spirit, therefore, must begin his teaching by showing you what you can never learn. His message is not indirect, but he must introduce the simple truth into a thought system which has become so twisted and so complex, you cannot see that it means nothing. He merely looks at its foundation and dismisses it. But you, who cannot undo what you have made, nor escape the heavy burden of its dullness that lies upon your mind, cannot see through it. It deceives you because you chose to deceive yourself. Those who choose to be deceived will merely attack direct approaches because they seem to encroach upon deception and strike at it. I know that sounded kind of confusing, and probably the way I was reading it didn't help very much. But I think mostly what it's saying is we've become so entrenched in our thought system that's so twisted and untrue that when the Holy Spirit tries to show us the truth, it goes against everything we created. So our first reaction is to deny it, to say that can't be so. That can't be so because we're so entrenched in this belief system of what we made, which is completely untrue.
Yes, I agree. So in some beliefs, in to talk to people, they call it like the lies that we believe.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
mean, that's, putting it a little bit harder, but God, the Course puts it even harsher in some places.
Right.
But it's the things that are not true, and they really are lies. Well,
Right.
you can dress it up any way you want, but it is a lie.
And the Holy Spirit, you know, this whole course is trying to teach us the truth, and it's just direct. It's like, well, this is the truth. And our mind is going, but wait a minute. That can't be the truth. You know, number one, it's too simple. And number two, it goes against everything I've ever believed.
Yep. It's
But it all comes down to one problem, and there's only one problem, and that is separation.
Right.
That's the only problem, isn't it?
Mhm.
And that's how simple it is.
That's how simple it is.
Hmm.
The thing that I loved about this is that it said, because we're not willing to see the truth, there's so much more we can't see, right? Because we believe that what we've created, which is just part of the illusion, we've made up all the rules it has. We've made up everything that it is, which is in complete opposition to what the truth is. But because we're unwilling to accept the truth, there's so much more that isn't shown to us. Because we have to let go of our belief in separation, like Freddie said.
Mm.
And once we do that, there will be so much more to see.
That's mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling. Looks like Nick had to run. He sent us a chat in the chat box. Well,
it's
anybody?
like,
Oh, go ahead.
it's like those people that create what quote unquote magic, but they're really illusionists.
Mhm.
You know, you really cannot see what they're doing because they play on the illusion of what we see. It's kind of like when you see the moon at the horizon and it looks huge.
Right.
The optical illusion, right?
Yes.
And so that's what's happening, huh? That's what's going on out here with us.
That's it. Until we decide to choose love and align with the Holy Spirit, we are stuck in the illusion.
Hmm.
But there's good news. The next section is the happy learner. Should we keep going?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, stuck in the illusion and getting caught up arguing about everybody else's illusions, their concepts and constructs.
True too, Carol. Isn't that true?
Everybody else's illusion, huh? Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
It's true. I actually just shared something about that on my Facebook post the other day, because I was always a fixer, right? I always thought I have to make everyone around me happy so that my world can be safe. And I think a lot of that stems back to being a child of an alcoholic, right? Because when you're in that turmoil and you realize that if you can make everything peaceful around you, you'll be safe. I kind of carried that out into my illusory world as an adult too, right? Like trying to make everybody happy, everything peaceful, and then I could be safe. And it would blow up again and again and again. And I'd realize, oh my gosh, I was exhausted trying to put out all of these fires all the time, trying to make peace everywhere around me, trying to make everyone happy, trying to fix their problems, right, Carol, that we were just talking about. And I finally realized that, of course, being a student of the Course in Miracles certainly helped, that all I need to do is nothing and just focus on my own connection to that one mind of God. That's it. Simple, right? Not always easy, but simple. And when you do that and you just focus on your own mindset and your own peace, then you can share that with others and affect real change. But trying to fix all this stuff out here is exhausting and not helpful. Right?
So true, so true. Exactly. Yes, that's right. You know, I mean, think about it. You have to fix yourself. And if you can't fix yourself, how can you fix anything else?
Exactly. You have nothing to share.
Right.
And that's what we just read too, is, you know, a blessing, you have to have that to share it, right? And until you have your own peace of mind, how can you share that with others?
And you know, and this is the thing about sharing, that it rubs off on them. You realize that you don't really have to do much because you're the living example.
You don't have to do anything. That's the thing, right? That's the crazy thing. We're always taught in this world of illusions, you have to do. And
Yep.
and really you need do nothing and just share that inner joy and peace and happiness.
Yep.
Next section, the happy learner. Shall we keep going?
Yeah.
Good to have you here with us, Tim. All right. We are on chapter 14, section 2, the happy learner. All right. The Holy Spirit needs a happy learner in whom his mission can be happily accomplished. You who are steadfastly devoted to misery must first recognize that you are miserable and not happy. The Holy Spirit cannot teach without this contrast, for you believe that misery is happiness. This has so confused you that you have undertaken to learn to do what you can never do, believing that unless you learn it, you will not be happy. You do not realize that the foundation on which this most peculiar learning goal depends means absolutely nothing. Yet it may still make sense to you. Have faith in nothing, and you will find the treasure that you seek. Yet you will add another burden to your already burdened mind. You will believe that nothing is of value and will value it. A little piece of glass, a speck of dust, a body, or a war are one to you. For if you value one thing made of nothing, you have believed that nothing can be precious and that you can learn how to make the untrue true. The Holy Spirit sees where you are, but knowing you are elsewhere, begins his lesson in simplicity with the fundamental teaching that truth is true. This is the hardest lesson you will ever learn, and in the end, the only one. Simplicity is very difficult for twisted minds. Consider all the distortions you have made of nothing, all the strange forms and feelings and actions and reactions that you have woven out of it. Nothing is so alien to you as the simple truth, and nothing are you less inclined to listen to. The contrast between what is true and what is not is perfectly apparent, yet you do not see it. The simple and the obvious are not apparent to those who would make palaces and royal robes of nothing, believing they are kings with golden crowns because of them. All this the Holy Spirit sees and teaches simply that all this is not true. To those unhappy learners who would teach themselves nothing and delude themselves into believing that it is not nothing, the Holy Spirit says with steadfast quietness, the truth is true. Nothing else matters. Nothing else is real, and everything beside it is not there. Let me make the one distinction for you that you cannot make but need to learn. Your faith in nothing is deceiving you. Offer your faith to me, and I will replace it gently in the holy place where it belongs. You will find no deception there, but only the simple truth, and you will love it because you will understand it. Like you, the Holy Spirit did not make truth. Like God, he knows it to be true. He brings the light of truth into the darkness and lets it shine on you. And as it shines, your brothers see it. And realizing that this light is not what you have made, they see in you more than you see. They will be happy learners of the lesson this light brings to them, because it teaches them release from nothing, from all the works of nothing. The heavy chains that seem to bind them to despair, they do not see as nothing until you bring the light to them. And then they see the chains have disappeared, and so they must have been nothing. And you will see it with them. Because you taught them gladness and release, they will become your teachers in release and gladness. When you teach anyone that truth is true, you learn it with him. And so you learn that what seemed hardest was the easiest. Learn to be a happy learner. You will never learn how to make nothing everything. Yet see that this has been your goal and recognize how foolish it has been. Be glad it is undone. For when you look at it in simple honesty, it is undone. I said before, be not content with nothing, for you have believed that nothing could content you. It is not so. If you would be a happy learner, you must give everything you have learned to the Holy Spirit to be unlearned for you, and then begin to learn the joyous lessons that come quickly on the firm foundation that truth is true. For what is builded there is true and built on truth. The universe of learning will open up before you in all its gracious simplicity. With truth before you, you will not look back. The happy learner meets the conditions of learning here as he meets the conditions of knowledge in the kingdom. All this lies in the Holy Spirit's plan to free you from the past and open up the way to freedom for you. For truth is true. What else could ever be or ever was? This simple lesson holds the key to the dark door that you believe is locked forever. You made this door of nothing, and behind it is nothing. The key is only the light that shines away the shapes and forms and fears of nothing. Accept this key to freedom from the hands of Christ, who gives it to you, that you may join him in the holy task of bringing light. For, like your brothers, you do not realize the light has come and freed you from the sleep of darkness. Behold your brothers in their freedom, and learn of them how to be free of darkness. The light in you will waken them, and they will not leave you asleep. The vision of Christ is given the very instant that it is perceived. Where everything is clear, it is all holy. The quietness of its simplicity is so compelling that you will realize it is impossible to deny the simple truth, for there is nothing else. God is everywhere, and his Son is in him with everything. Can he sing the dirge of sorrow when this is true?
What does that word dirge mean?
Let's look it up. A lament for the dead, especially one forming part of a funeral rite. Ooh, interesting. A mournful song, a piece of music or poem. So it sounds like it's a mournful song.
Right.
Yeah, I could do a few notes. Da, 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 da.
There you go, Tim. Thank you for sharing that. That's exactly it, right?
Yeah, plotting and working very hard and no. Yeah, I got to share this. I would have been on earlier, but I allowed my work. I'm an architectural photographer. I had an emergency that one of our architects is submitting some images, and they wanted some images we took on the same project, but these were taken for the general contractor instead of the architect. So there got to be like, okay, well, we'll let you have them, but it's going to be X amount of dollars. And my partner and I talked it over. Yeah, that's very fair, blah, blah, blah. And so we sent it off. And then the architect comes back with, well, yeah, but these are, and we need these. And then some other stuff surfaced. And it was like, if we're going to have a relationship, this is a new customer. If we're going to have a relationship with them, and they have other projects around here, just got to let go. So I picked up the phone and I talked with the architects, the representative, and then shortly thereafter, the general contractor, and all of us resolved that, like, hey, this is a joint award for the general contractor and for the architect. And if they win, we win. So, is it worth $400 to jeopardize a future relationship? Could it generate possibly thousands of dollars in our revenue for our little company? And beyond that, it just wasn't the right thing to do. So, we just had to go, hey, we're all one in this, literally one. The three companies are joined basically, and there was some little stuff, but it's the same thing. Bringing it back, that's a long story. I didn't mean to make it so long. It's so simple when you just give up and you stop the dirge. If you've got the dirge going, it sets the countenance, it sets the attitude, it sets everything that you measure. We measure all the time, every little thing. Let me move this paper clip just so there, now it's perpendicular to the edge. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than let me shoot this guy in the head. I could shoot him in the head, or I could not shoot him in the head. What am I going to gain by shooting him in the head? Some ego gratification that he cheated me. Whatever. I mean, my God, it doesn't make any difference, the severity. Let's have these two countries go to war. No, better yet, let's have the entire world go to war, like we did in World War I, over some guy got shot and killed. And since we had this agreement, we gave up hundreds of thousands of human beings and all the suffering and so forth. And of course, none of that really occurred in God's reality, but boy, it's pretty miserable around here. So that's what we do, guys. I'm tired of it. I just want to stop that. Anyway, somebody else.
Great share, Tim. And you can stop it, right? Because it's just you. It's just you keeping it perpetuated, right?
Yeah, it's always me.
Yeah.
Every time.
All of us. It's
Yeah.
just our thoughts about it that make it true.
It's really very, very, very simple. I mean, he says it brilliantly here. The moment we stop, there's a whole nother world, the real world. So the instant, the holy instant we stop. It's not a moment. So
That's right. True, true. Any other thoughts?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I'm going to continue. Get one more section in here before it's our time to go. The decision for guiltlessness. The happy learner cannot feel guilty about learning. This is so essential to learning that it should never be forgotten. The guiltless learner learns easily because his thoughts are free. Yet this entails the recognition that guilt is interference, not salvation, and serves no useful function at all. Perhaps you are accustomed to using guiltlessness merely to offset the pain of guilt and do not look upon it as having value in itself. You believe that guilt and guiltlessness are both of value, each representing an escape from what the other does not offer you. You do not want either alone, for without both, you do not see yourself as whole and therefore happy. Yet you are whole, only in your guiltlessness, and only in your guiltlessness can you be happy. There is no conflict here. To wish for guilt in any way, in any form, will lose appreciation of the value of your guiltlessness and push it from your sight. There is no compromise that you can make with guilt and escape the pain that only guiltlessness allays. Learning is living here, as creating is being in heaven. Whenever the pain of guilt seems to attract you, remember that if you yield to it, you are deciding against your happiness and will not learn how to be happy. Say, therefore, to yourself, gently, but with the conviction born of the love of God and of his Son, what I experience, I will make manifest. If I am guiltless, I have nothing to fear. I choose to testify to my acceptance of the at-one-ment, not to its rejection. I would accept my guiltlessness by making it manifest and sharing it. Let me bring peace to God's Son from his Father. Each day, each hour and minute, even each second, you are deciding between the crucifixion and the resurrection, between the ego and the Holy Spirit. The ego is the choice for guilt. The Holy Spirit, the choice for guiltlessness. The power of decision is all that is yours. What you can decide between is fixed, because there are no alternatives except truth and illusion. And there is no overlap between them, because they are opposites, which cannot be reconciled and cannot both be true. You are guilty or guiltless, bound or free, unhappy or happy. The miracle teaches you that you have chosen guiltlessness, freedom, and joy. It is not a cause, but an effect. It is the natural result of choosing right, attesting to your happiness that comes from choosing to be free of guilt. Everyone you offer healing to returns it. Everyone you attack keeps it and cherishes it by holding it against you. Whether he does this or does it not will make no difference. You will think he does. It is impossible to offer what you do not want without this penalty. The cost of giving is receiving. Either it is a penalty from which you suffer, or the happy purchase of a treasure to hold dear. No penalty is ever asked of God's Son except by himself and of himself. Every chance given him to heal is another opportunity to replace darkness with light and fear with love. If he refuses it, he binds himself to darkness because he did not choose to free his brother and enter light with him. By giving power to nothing, he throws away the joyous opportunity to learn that nothing has no power. And by not dispelling darkness, he became afraid of darkness and of light. The joy of learning that darkness has no power over the Son of God is the happy lesson the Holy Spirit teaches and would have you teach with him. It is his joy to teach it, and it will be yours. The way to teach this simple lesson is merely this: guiltlessness is invulnerability. Therefore, make your invulnerability manifest to everyone. Teach him that whatever he may try to do to you, your perfect freedom from the belief that you can be harmed shows him that he is guiltless. He can do nothing that can hurt you. And by refusing to allow him to think he can, you teach him that the at-one-ment, which you have accepted for yourself, is also his. There is nothing to forgive. No one can hurt the Son of God. His guilt is wholly without cause, and being without cause cannot exist. God is the only cause, and guilt is not of him. Teach no one he has hurt you, for if you do, you teach yourself that what is not of God has power over you. The causeless cannot be. Do not attest to it, and do not foster belief in it in any mind. Remember always that mind is one and cause is one. You will learn communication with this oneness only when you learn to deny the causeless and accept the cause of God as yours. The power that God has given to his Son is his, and nothing else can his Son see or choose to look upon without imposing on himself the penalty of guilt in place of all the happy teaching the Holy Spirit would gladly offer him. Whenever you choose to make decisions for yourself, you are thinking destructively, and the decision will be wrong. It will hurt you because of the concept of decision that led to it. It is not true that you can make decisions by yourself or for yourself alone. No thought of God's Son can be separate or isolated in its effects. Every decision is made for the whole sonship, directed in and out, and influencing a constellation larger than anything you ever dreamed of. Those who accept the at-one-ment are invulnerable, but those who believe they are guilty will respond to guilt because they think it is salvation and will not refuse to see it and side with it. They believe that increasing guilt is self-protection, and they will fail to understand the simple fact that what they do not want must hurt them. All this arises because they do not believe that what they want is good. Yet will was given them because it is holy and will bring them all they need, coming as naturally as peace that knows no limits. There is nothing their will fails to provide that offers them anything of value. Yet, because they do not understand their will, the Holy Spirit quietly understands it for them and gives them what they want without effort, strain, or the impossible burden of deciding what they want and need alone. It will never happen that you must make decisions for yourself. You are not bereft of help, and help that knows the answer. Would you be content with little, which is all that you alone can offer yourself, when he who gives you everything will simply offer it to you? He will never ask what you have done to make you worthy of the gift of God. Ask it not, therefore, of yourself. Instead, accept his answer, for he knows that you are worthy of everything God wills for you. Do not try to escape the gift of God he so freely and so gladly offers you. He offers you but what God gave him for you. You need not decide whether or not you are deserving of it. God knows you are. Would you deny the truth of God's decision and place your pitiful appraisal of yourself in place of his calm and unswerving value of his Son? Nothing can shake God's conviction of the perfect purity of everything that he created, for it is wholly pure. Do not decide against it, for being of him, it must be true. Peace abides in every mind that quietly accepts the plan God set for its at-one-ment, relinquishing its own. You know not of salvation, for you do not understand it. Make no decisions about what it is or where it lies, but ask the Holy Spirit everything and leave all decisions to his gentle counsel. The one who knows the plan of God that God would have you follow can teach you what it is. Only his wisdom is capable of guiding you to follow it. Every decision you undertake alone but signifies that you would define what salvation is and what you would be saved from. The Holy Spirit knows that all salvation is escape from guilt. You have no other enemy, and against this strange distortion of the purity of the Son of God, the Holy Spirit is your only friend. He is the strong protector of the innocence that sets you free, and it is his decision to undo everything that would obscure your innocence from your unclouded mind. Let him, therefore, be the only guide that you would follow to salvation. He knows the way and leads you gladly on it. With him, you will not fail to learn that what God wills for you is your will. Without his guidance, you will think you know alone and will decide against your peace, as surely as you decided that salvation lay in you alone. Salvation is of him, to whom God gave it for you. He has not forgotten it. Forget him not, and he will make every decision for you, for your salvation and the peace of God in you. Seek not to appraise the worth of God's Son, whom he created holy, for to do so is to evaluate his Father and judge against him. And you will feel guilty for this imagined crime, which no one in this world or heaven could possibly commit. The Holy Spirit teaches that the sin of self-replacement on the throne of God is not a source of guilt. What cannot happen can have no effects to fear. Be quiet in your faith in him who loves you and would lead you out of insanity. Madness may be your choice, but not your reality. Never forget the love of God, who has remembered you. For it is quite impossible that he could ever let his Son drop from the loving mind wherein he was created, and where his abode was fixed in perfect peace forever. Say to the Holy Spirit only, decide for me, and it is done. For his decisions are reflections of what God knows about you. And in this light, error of any kind, be to anticipate all you cannot know, when all knowledge lies behind every decision the Holy Spirit makes for you. Learn of his wisdom and his love, and teach his answer to everyone who struggles in the dark, for you decide for them and for yourself. How gracious it is to decide all things through him whose equal love is given equally to all alike. He leaves you no one outside you, and so he gives you what is yours, because your Father would have you share it with him. In everything be led by him, and do not reconsider. Trust him to answer quickly, surely, and with love for everyone who will be touched. Would you take unto yourself the sole responsibility for deciding what can bring only good to everyone? Would you know this? You taught yourself the most unnatural habit of not communicating with your Creator, yet you remain in close with him. Unlearn isolation through his loving guidance, and learn of all the happy communication that you have thrown away but could not lose. Whenever you are in doubt, what you should you, and tell yourself this and only this: He leadeth me and knows the way which I know not. Yet he will never keep from me what he would have me learn. And so I trust him to communicate to me all that he knows for me. Then let him teach you quietly how to perceive your guiltlessness, which is already there.
Very good news.
Okay.
You were breaking up a bit towards the end there.
Yeah, I was having the same thing. Your voice was breaking up a little bit, Terry.
Oh, was it? Sorry about that, Tim. I know it looks like
No.
I'm having a bad connection here. Sorry about that.
Well, my mother-in-law just called and she can't get her TV on and it's off of our system. So in Tallahassee, we're having something too. So
Yeah, strange. Well, maybe we should reread that next week.
oh, I got it. I got it.
Yeah, we were
Okay,
reading it.
Good,
Yeah. No, that
I
was
have
great.
mine here.
good. Yay. Everybody reading along.
I've got to run, I'm afraid.
Yes, I know we've gone beyond the time, so I will see all of you next week. Thank
Sure
you for
will.
being here.
Right.
All right,
Thank
and I will try to
Thanks for your
cut off
fabulous
on time
brief.
next week.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. Okay, we'll see you next week. Thank you, everyone.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.